The message arrived on every screen across Earth simultaneously. Television broadcasts, phone displays, computer monitors, all flickered to life with the same haunting image. A tall, statuesque figure with silvery skin and eyes that seemed to hold the depth of galaxies. Behind her, a vast armada of crystalline ships stretched across the star-filled void. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the United Earth Defense Force Command Center, her weathered hands gripping the tactical display as she studied the alien fleet's formation. 20 years of military service hadn't prepared her for this moment. The entire Sol system had effectively been surrounded in less than 6 hours. "I am High Commander Kyrax of the Valkyrie Empire," the figure announced, her voice carrying an otherworldly resonance that sent chills through everyone who heard it. "Your species has drawn our attention. We offer you a choice. Submit to our guidance and elevation, or face extinction." Sarah's dark eyes narrowed as she analyzed the alien commander's bearing, her posture, the subtle hints of superiority in her tone. After 2 decades of reading opponents across negotiating tables and battlefields, she recognized the look of someone who had never tasted defeat. General Williams. She called out to her second-in-command, "What's the status of the lunar defense grid?" "Fully operational, Admiral," Williams responded, his voice steady despite the tension. "But their ships, our sensors can barely get a read on them. It's like they're partially out of phase with our reality." Sarah nodded, her mind already racing through scenarios. The Valkyrie Empire clearly expected Earth to fold like so many civilizations before them. Their perfectly choreographed arrival, the theatrical broadcast. This was a practiced performance. "Open a channel," she ordered. "Let's introduce ourselves properly." The command center's main screen shifted to a two-way communication. High Commander Kyrax's expression registered the briefest flicker of surprise at the swift response. "High Commander," Sarah began, her voice clear and unwavering. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. We acknowledge your arrival, but reject your terms. Earth is not yours to claim." Kyrax's ethereal features shifted into something approaching amusement. "Admiral, you misunderstand. This is not a negotiation. We have uplifted countless species across 12 galaxies. Your resistance is—" She paused, searching for the word. "Quaint." "Then perhaps we can interest you in an alternative," Sarah replied, allowing a slight smile to cross her face. "Your empire clearly values strength and capability. We propose a series of trials, contests between your warriors and ours. If you win, Earth will consider your offer. If we win, you leave our system and acknowledge our sovereignty." A ripple of murmurs spread through both the command center and the alien ship. Kyrax's expression shifted from amusement to intrigue. "You would stake your planet's future on combat trials?" Kyrax asked, genuine curiosity coloring her tone. "We would stake it on our people's abilities," Sarah corrected. "Unless, of course, the mighty Valkyrie Empire fears testing itself against a primitive species." The calculated challenge hung in the space between them. Sarah could see Kyrax's commanders in the background, their expressions ranging from outrage to anticipation. She had studied enough history to know that great powers often fell not to superior strength, but to their own pride. After what seemed like an eternity, Kyrax smiled, a sharp, predatory expression. "Very well, Admiral. We accept your proposal. 3 days to prepare. 5 trials of our choosing. Your champions against ours. With one condition," Sarah interjected. "The trials must be survivable. This is a test of skill, not a blood sport." "Agreed. Though you may wish we had been less merciful when this ends." The transmission cut off, leaving the command center in tense silence. General Williams stepped closer to Sarah's station. "Admiral, are you sure about this? We know nothing about their capabilities." Sarah's eyes remained fixed on the fleet display, watching as the Valkyrie ships moved into holding positions around Earth's orbit. "What I'm sure about, General, is that they've never encountered humans before. And that's going to be their biggest mistake. Over the next 72 hours, Earth transformed into a hive of activity. The United Earth Defense Force combed through military and civilian populations alike, identifying potential champions for whatever trials the Valkyries might devise. Sarah spent countless hours reviewing the limited data they had gathered on their visitors, searching for any advantage they could use. On the morning of the third day, High Commander Kirax transmitted the details of the 5 trials: enhanced combat in varying environments, tactical problem-solving under extreme conditions, endurance challenges that would push the boundaries of physical capability. Each trial seemed designed to showcase the Valkyries' superiority in every conceivable way. As Sarah reviewed the trial specifications with her team, she noticed something that made her smile. The Valkyries had created each challenge based on their own strengths, never considering that humans might have developed entirely different approaches to the same problems. "They're expecting us to fight like them," she announced to her assembled officers. "To think like them. That's not going to happen." She turned to face the tactical display, where the crystalline ships still hung in Earth's orbit like a net of stars. "Humanity didn't climb to the top of our food chain by being the strongest, fastest, or most technologically advanced. We got here by being the most adaptable, the most innovative, and the most determined species on our planet." Her voice carried across the command center, steel and fire in equal measure. "The Valkyries think they're here to test us, but we're about to teach them something about humanity that they'll never forget." As the sun set on the third day, Earth's champions stood ready. The trials would begin at dawn, and with them, a contest that would determine not just humanity's fate, but its place among the stars. Sarah Chen looked out over the city lights below her command center, knowing that tomorrow would either mark the beginning of humanity's submission or the day the galaxy learned why you should never underestimate the human spirit. The Valkyrie ships glittered in the night sky, beautiful, powerful, and utterly convinced of their superiority. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Sometimes the most important victories came not from overwhelming force, but from being underestimated by the right opponent at the right time. Tomorrow, the games would begin, and the Valkyrie Empire was about to learn exactly what they were dealing with. The first light of dawn painted the Mojave Desert in shades of gold and crimson as Earth's champions gathered at the designated trial grounds. The Valkyries had transformed 5 square miles of desert into a series of environmental domes, each one containing a different challenge. The structures gleamed like massive soap bubbles under the rising sun, their surfaces rippling with iridescent patterns. Maya Patel, former Olympic decathlete and combat engineer, stood beside her fellow champions. To her left was Marcus Rodriguez, a deep-sea rescue specialist with more successful impossible missions than anyone in history. To her right, Dr. Lin Wei, quantum physicist and former mountain rescue volunteer. They made an unlikely team. Not the strongest, not the fastest, but perhaps the most resourceful humans on Earth. High Commander Kirax materialized before them in a shimmer of light, flanked by her own champions. The Valkyrie warriors stood nearly 8 feet tall, their biomechanical armor pulsing with internal energy. Each moved with liquid grace that seemed to defy physics. "The first trial begins in the Crucible," Kirax announced, gesturing to the nearest dome. "A battle of enhanced combat prowess. Our champion, Zara X, against yours." Maya stepped forward, her nanofiber suit feeling impossibly light compared to the Valkyrie's elaborate armor. She caught Admiral Chen's eye from the observation platform and received a subtle nod. They had planned for this. Inside the dome, the environment shifted and warped. Gravity fluctuated randomly, while platforms of varying sizes appeared and disappeared without warning. Zara X smiled down at Maya, her enhanced muscles rippling beneath pearlescent skin. "I will try to leave you mostly intact, little human," the Valkyrie warrior said. Maya's response was a quick grin. "That's thoughtful. I was planning to leave you very confused." The signal to begin echoed through the chamber. Zara X launched forward with devastating speed, her augmented limbs blurring as she struck. But Maya wasn't there. Years of decathlon training had taught her something the Valkyries didn't understand. The human body was capable of movements that defied conventional combat logic. Maya flowed around the attack like water, using the shifting gravity to her advantage. Where Zara X fought against the environmental changes, Maya adapted to them. Each fluctuation became an opportunity, each platform shift a new tactical option. Stand and fight properly, Zara X demanded after 5 minutes of failing to land a single blow. Why? Maya asked, redirecting another powerful strike with a minimal movement. Because that's how you fight. I'm not you. I'm human. The frustration began to show in Zara X's movements. Her attacks became stronger but less precise. She relied more on her augmentations, less on technique. And that's when Maya sprung her trap. With a series of quick movements that looked more like a dance than combat, Maya used Zara X's own momentum against her. Each enhanced strike was redirected, each burst of speed turned into a liability. The Valkyrie warrior found herself hitting nothing but air, her superior strength becoming a disadvantage in the shifting gravity. The killing blow wasn't a strike at all. Maya simply timed her movements to let Zara X's own attack carry her into a gravity shift, sending the warrior tumbling through space until she couldn't tell up from down. By the time she recovered, Maya had her in a simple but effective hold that used the Valkyrie's own enhanced strength against her. Yield, Maya said quietly. Your augmentations are impressive, but they're predictable. And humans, we're anything but. The silence that followed Maya's victory was deafening. Kyrax's expression had shifted from confident to concerned. This wasn't supposed to be possible. Her warriors were enhanced beyond human capability. Yet they had just lost to what appeared to be simple physics and adaptation. The second trial, Kyrax announced, her voice slightly less certain, will test cognitive processing under extreme conditions. Dr. Lin Wei stepped forward for this challenge. The dome transformed into a complex three-dimensional puzzle chamber filled with quantum uncertainties and paradox fields. The Valkyrie champion, a being seemingly made of pure crystalline thought, entered with confident disdain. What followed was not the straightforward defeat the Valkyries expected. Where their champion approached each problem with immense computational power, Lin approached them with intuitive leaps and creative solutions that shouldn't have worked, but did. She solved quantum paradoxes by accepting their impossibility rather than trying to resolve them. She navigated uncertainty fields by embracing the chaos rather than trying to predict it. Impossible, the Valkyrie champion declared as Lin completed the final puzzle. Your species doesn't have the processing capacity for these solutions. Lin smiled gently. We don't solve everything with processing power. Sometimes the best solution is to stop trying to solve the problem and start trying to understand it instead. By midday, Earth had claimed 2 victories. The Valkyries' perfect record was cracking, and with it, their assumption of superiority. Admiral Chen watched from her command post as Kyrax consulted with her officers, their agitation visible even through their otherworldly composure. The third trial will begin in 1 hour, Kyrax announced. I suggest your champions prepare themselves. What comes next will not be so easily overcome with clever tricks. But Sarah Chen saw something in the High Commander's eyes that hadn't been there before. Doubt. The Valkyries had expected to demonstrate their superiority. Instead, they were learning that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their muscles or minds, but in their ability to adapt, to think differently, to find solutions where none should exist. Marcus Rodriguez checked his equipment for the coming endurance trial, his eyes steady and determined. They all knew the Valkyries would make the next challenges harder, more demanding, perhaps even seemingly impossible. But that had always been humanity's specialty, doing the impossible simply because no one told them they couldn't. As the sun climbed higher in the desert sky, both sides prepared for what was to come. The Valkyries with their advanced technology and enhanced capabilities, the humans with nothing but their ingenuity, determination, and the uniquely human ability to turn disadvantages into strengths. The games had indeed begun, but they weren't playing out quite the way anyone had expected. The afternoon sun beat down mercilessly as Marcus Rodriguez faced the third trial. The massive environmental dome had transformed into a hellscape that would have made Dante himself uncomfortable. Columns of fire erupted randomly from the ground, while the air pressure fluctuated between crushing depths and near-vacuum conditions. High Commander Kyrax's voice carried an edge of frost as she announced the parameters. The endurance trial will test survival capabilities beyond normal biological limits. Your opponent is Nexus V, our survival specialist. Marcus stood calmly, his modified deep-sea diving suit looking almost primitive next to the Valkyrie warrior's crystalline environmental armor. As a deep-sea rescue specialist, he had learned long ago that survival wasn't about having the best equipment. It was about understanding your environment and your own limits. Normal biological limits, he murmured, checking his oxygen recyclers. Lady, you really don't know what humans do for fun, do you? The trial began without warning. The temperature plummeted to near absolute zero, then shot up to volcanic levels within seconds. Nexus V moved with confident grace, their advanced suit automatically adjusting to each environmental extreme. But Marcus didn't try to match their technology. Instead, he used the environment itself as a tool. When the pressure dropped, he didn't fight it. He rode the currents like a deep-sea current. When the heat spiked, he used the thermal updrafts to conserve energy. Every challenge the environment presented became an opportunity rather than an obstacle. Hours passed. Nexus V's movements became less precise, their advanced systems struggling to keep up with the constant adjustments. Meanwhile, Marcus continued his methodical progress, treating the trial like just another day at work. How? Nexus V finally demanded, their voice betraying frustration. Your equipment is primitive. You shouldn't be able to survive these conditions. Marcus grinned behind his faceplate. Humans have been surviving impossible conditions since before we had technology. We climbed Mount Everest in wool coats. We crossed oceans in wooden boats. We explored ocean trenches in steel balls. The equipment helps, but it's not what keeps us alive. The trial ended not with a dramatic final, but with Nexus V's systems finally reaching their operational limits, while Marcus still had reserves to spare. The Valkyrie warriors stood in shocked silence as their supposedly superior technology failed before human adaptability and experience. In the command center, Admiral Chen noticed the shifting dynamics among the Valkyrie leadership. Their perfect formation had developed gaps, their unified front showing cracks. Pride was giving way to confusion, and confusion to the first hints of fear. The fourth trial, Kyrax announced, her voice tight with suppressed emotion, will test tactical processing in real-time combat scenarios. The dome transformed into a complex battlefield simulation. Dr. Lin Wei stepped forward again, this time accompanied by Maya Patel. The Valkyries had demanded 2 champions for this trial, clearly hoping to overwhelm the humans with superior numbers and processing power. What followed was a masterclass in human tactical thinking, where the Valkyrie warriors relied on predictive algorithms and strategic protocols. Lin and Maya employed what they called controlled chaos theory. They made moves that seemed illogical, even suicidal, until the moment their true purpose became clear. Their patterns make no sense. One Valkyrie warrior complained as another carefully laid trap fell apart against the humans' seemingly random actions. That's because we're not following patterns, Maya replied, as she and Lin executed another impossible maneuver. We're making it up as we go along. The simulation ended with the human team achieving objectives that the Valkyries had deemed mathematically impossible. Their perfect tactical systems had been defeated not by superior technology or processing power, but by human unpredictability and intuitive decision-making. High Commander Kyrax stood at her command post, her composure finally cracking. "This is not possible," she declared. "You are primitive, limited. Your species barely understands quantum mechanics. You haven't even achieved controlled fusion." Admiral Chen stepped forward, her voice carrying across the command frequency. "You're right, Commander. We don't have your technology. We don't have your enhanced capabilities. But we have something you seem to have forgotten in your quest for perfection. We have creativity, adaptability, the ability to look at impossible odds and say, watch this. The sun was setting now, painting the desert in deep oranges and purples. The final trial would begin at dawn tomorrow, but already the outcomes seemed to carry a different weight than either side had anticipated at the start. In their ship above Earth, the Valkyrie Leadership Council convened an emergency session. Their carefully constructed worldview was crumbling in the face of human persistence. They had expected to demonstrate their superiority. Instead, they were learning painful lessons about the dangers of underestimating a species that had evolved by overcoming countless obstacles. Admiral Chen gathered her champions for a final briefing. Tomorrow would bring the hardest challenge yet. The Valkyries would throw everything they had at humanity in a desperate attempt to maintain their image of superiority. But as she looked at her team, she saw no fear in their eyes. They had proven something not just to the Valkyries, but to themselves. Whatever they bring tomorrow, she told them, remember this. They fight to prove their superiority. We fight to protect our home. And that makes all the difference. As night fell over the desert, both sides prepared for the final confrontation. The Valkyries with their advanced technology and wounded pride, the humans with their determination and newfound confidence. Tomorrow would decide not just Earth's fate, but perhaps the future of human-Valkyrie relations. And under the stars, a new understanding was beginning to take shape, one that would change both species forever. Dawn had not yet broken when the emergency alarms blared across the command center. Admiral Chen rushed to her station, adrenaline surging as she took in the tactical displays. The Valkyrie fleet had shifted formation during the night, their crystalline ships now forming a complex geometric pattern above Earth. Status report, she barked, noting the nervous energy among her staff. Admiral, General Williams responded, his face pale in the glow of the monitors. They're channeling massive energy readings through their fleet. The pattern, it's some kind of amplification array. Before she could respond, High Commander Kyrax's image appeared on all screens. Gone was the composed, superior bearing. In its place was something far more dangerous. Desperate pride. Humans, Kyrax announced, her voice resonating with barely contained emotion. You have corrupted the sanctity of our trials with your primitive chaos. We will not allow this mockery to continue. Sarah's mind raced, analyzing the situation. Commander Kyrax, you agreed to the terms. The trials are not complete. The terms have changed. Kyrax's eyes blazed with internal light. You will submit to immediate genetic and technological enhancement, or we will demonstrate true Valkyrie power. Your atmosphere can be converted to crystal in under 3 minutes. Your choice. In the tense silence that followed, Sarah noticed something in the tactical display. Subtle fluctuations in the Valkyrie fleet's energy pattern. Dr. Linway saw it too, her quick mind already calculating possibilities. Admiral, Lin whispered urgently, their formation, it's unstable. They're pushing their systems beyond design tolerances. The power readings are fractal. Sarah understood immediately. The Valkyries weren't just threatening Earth. They were risking their own destruction in a desperate attempt to maintain their perceived superiority. Pride had driven them to the breaking point. Commander Kyrax, Sarah called out, her voice steady, look at your own readings. Your fleet's energy pattern is destabilizing. You're putting your own people at risk. Lies. Kyrax snapped, but there was a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. Our technology is perfect. We are perfect. Nothing is perfect. Maya Patel stepped forward, her voice calm. That's what we've been trying to show you. Humanity's strength isn't in perfection. It's in accepting and adapting to imperfection. The energy readings continued to climb. Crystal formations began appearing in the upper atmosphere, beautiful but lethal structures that sparkled in the pre-dawn light. Time was running out. Marcus Rodriguez, who had been quietly studying the crystallization pattern, suddenly spoke up. Those formations, they're following Earth's magnetic field lines. Admiral, If we could reverse the polarity, it would disrupt their entire network. Lynn finished, already running calculations. But the power requirement would be enormous. Sarah made her decision. General Williams, initiate Protocol Omega. Divert all power from the global defense grid to the magnetic field generators. Admiral, Williams protested, that would leave us completely exposed. We're already exposed, Sarah replied. Sometimes the best defense is proving you're willing to be vulnerable. She opened a channel to Kyrax. Commander, power down your fleet now, or what happens next will be your responsibility. Kyrax laughed, the sound sharp and brittle. You would strip your own defenses. Perhaps humans are not merely primitive, they are insane. Sarah watched the power readings climb higher, waited until the perfect moment when the Valkyrie fleet's energy pattern reached its peak. Then she gave the order. Earth's magnetic field reversed. The effect was immediate and spectacular. The crystalline formations in the atmosphere shattered like breaking glass. The Valkyrie fleet's perfect geometric pattern distorted as their energy network collapsed in on itself. Ships began to spin out of formation, their crews fighting to maintain control. Impossible, Kyrax whispered, watching her perfect plan unravel. How did you know? We didn't, Sarah admitted. But humans have a long history of doing impossible things because we didn't know they were impossible. We also have a history of choosing trust over fear, even when it seems crazy. The Valkyrie ship stabilized, but their formation was broken. More importantly, their aura of invincibility had shattered along with their crystal constructs. For the first time, they faced not just defeat, but the realization that their pursuit of perfection had nearly led them to catastrophe. As the sun finally broke over the horizon, painting the scattered crystal fragments in brilliant rainbow hues, a new message came through. Not from Kyrax, but from the Valkyrie High Council itself. Perhaps, the message read, "It is we who have something to learn." Sarah looked at her team. The physicist who saw patterns in chaos, the athlete who turned limitations into advantages, the rescue specialist who treated the impossible as just another Tuesday. They had done more than defend Earth. They had shown a supposedly superior species that perfection wasn't the goal, growth was. But as the message from the High Council continued, Sarah realized this wasn't the end of the story. It was about to take a turn that would challenge both species in ways none of them could have predicted. The final trial would still happen, but its nature had changed. No longer a test of superiority, but an opportunity for something far more valuable, understanding. As her team prepared for what would come next, Sarah reflected on how often humanity's greatest victories came not from dominating others, but from showing them a different way forward. Tomorrow would bring the final confrontation, but today had already proven something vital. Sometimes the most powerful weapon isn't strength or technology, but the willingness to risk everything to show others a better path. The breaking point had come and gone, leaving behind not destruction, but possibility. Now they just had to figure out what to do with it. The desert morning brought with it an unprecedented sight. Valkyrie ships landing on Earth's surface. Their crystalline structures caught the sunlight, sending rainbow refractions across the sand as High Commander Kyrax descended with the members of the High Council. Their usual ethereal grace was tempered now with something new: humility. Admiral Sarah Chen met them on the ground, her team beside her. The air crackled with possibility and tension. This wasn't the final trial anyone had expected, but perhaps it was the one both species needed. "Your people," one of the council elders began, her ancient eyes studying the humans, "have shown us something we had forgotten in our pursuit of perfection. You have reminded us of what we once were before we began our enhancement programs." Kyrax stepped forward, her proud bearing now mixed with genuine curiosity. "We believed that progress meant eliminating chaos, achieving absolute control. But you've demonstrated that true advancement might lie in embracing uncertainty." "That's the thing about humans," Sarah replied, watching as more Valkyries emerged from their ships, many seeing an alien world with their own eyes for the first time. "We never stopped being what we started as, adaptable, curious, sometimes chaotic beings who see possibilities where others see limitations. The final trial transformed into something unprecedented, a collaborative challenge. The dome shifted and changed, becoming a massive simulation of a dying star system. Both species would work together to save as many worlds and lives as possible from the stellar collapse. "We will use our technology," Kyrax announced. "You will use your creativity. Together, we will see what can be achieved when perfection and possibility combine." What followed was unlike anything either species had experienced before. Valkyrie technology merged with human intuition. Where the aliens' perfect calculations hit walls, human lateral thinking found ways around them. When human limitations seemed insurmountable, Valkyrie enhancements bridged the gap. Maya Patel worked with Valkyrie warriors, teaching them how to adapt their enhanced abilities to unexpected situations. Dr. Lin Wei collaborated with their scientists, showing them how apparent chaos could lead to breakthrough solutions. Marcus Rodriguez demonstrated how human determination could enhance even the most advanced technology. As the simulation progressed, something remarkable happened. The Valkyries began to innovate, to think beyond their programming. The humans began to understand how to integrate enhancement without losing their essential nature. Both species were learning, growing, changing. "Look at that," Sarah said to Kyrax as they watched their teams work together to save a particularly challenging planetary system. "Your perfection and our chaos, creating something entirely new." Kyrax nodded, her expression thoughtful. "We came to elevate your species, believing we knew what elevation meant. Instead, you have elevated us by showing us our own limitations." The simulation ended with both species achieving something neither could have accomplished alone. The council elders stood in silence, watching as humans and Valkyries continued to exchange ideas even after the trial had ended. "We propose a new arrangement," the lead elder announced. "Not submission, not conquest, but partnership. Earth will retain its sovereignty, and our species will learn from each other." Sarah looked at her team, saw the excitement in their eyes at the possibilities this offered. "Partnership," she agreed, "with one condition. We maintain our right to do things our way, even when it seems illogical to you." "Especially then," Kyrax added, surprising everyone with a small smile. "It seems that is when humans are at their most remarkable." As the sun reached its zenith, the desert witnessed the signing of the first Human-Valkyrie Cooperation Treaty. The Valkyrie fleet remained in orbit, but now as allies rather than conquerors. Research teams from both species began setting up joint projects, each bringing their unique strengths to the table. "You know," Maya said to Zora X as they watched the proceedings, "this whole thing started because your people thought we needed fixing. Turns out we all had something to learn." The Valkyrie warrior nodded, her perfect features showing a new appreciation for imperfection. "Perhaps that is the greatest lesson. True advancement comes not from eliminating our differences, but from learning how they make us stronger together." Admiral Chen stood with High Commander Kyrax, watching their people begin this new chapter. "What do you think the rest of the galaxy will make of this?" she asked. "They will call us mad," Kyrax replied, "until they see what we achieve together. Sometimes the best victories come not from winning, but from learning how to redefine the game entirely." As the day drew to a close, the desert sky filled with a spectacular display. Valkyrie ships creating crystal formations that caught and reflected Earth's sunset, while human aircraft danced between them in seemingly chaotic but beautiful patterns. It was a perfect metaphor for what they had achieved. The merger of order and chaos, perfection and possibility, creating something greater than either could have imagined. The stars beckoned above, no longer a barrier between species, but a frontier they would explore together. Earth had not just survived its greatest challenge, it had transformed it into its greatest opportunity. And somewhere out in the galaxy, other species would soon learn that humanity's real strength lay not in their ability to fight, but in their capacity to turn adversaries into allies by showing them a different way to view the universe. The game had changed, and with it, the future of both species. The age of human-Valkyrie cooperation had begun, and the galaxy would never be quite the same again.